Hello and welcome back to The Creatives, everybody. Welcome to episode 19. I'm joined today by Mazarine Memon, who is an artist and a creator of the Mysteries in Color book, which we're going to dive into in today's episode. Mazarine is a very talented artist with a very unique background, and we connected through a common friend, Izzy P from episode 16. Izzy actually helped Mazarine develop her brand and her project that we're going to talk about today. The Creatives Podcast is a podcast dedicated to the exploration of creativity through conversation, and we have conversations with people who embody creativity in the forefront of their efforts. This podcast is available on all major streaming platforms and is proudly supported by Midnight Hour Studios, which is where we are recording today. Midnight Hour Studios is a blank canvas studio space where you can rent it and let your imagination run wild. It's in the heart of Ottawa. There's plenty of parking. There's a discount code for you, the listener, in the description below. So have a look at that. You'll get 25% off your first booking using discount code TheCreatives. And also a big thank you to Pano Media for supporting the show, for powering the production with all of the tools, the video, audio, and lighting tools that we use here. Thank you, Pano Media. And yeah, without further ado, welcome, Mazarine.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you here all the way down from Toronto. I think you for sure are the guest who's traveled the furthest to be on the show. So I'm honored to have you here.
Thank you.
It means a lot, and I hope that I hope to learn something from what you've created. I'm very excited to kind of get into all of that today. So before we kind of dive into the episode, can you share with us what creativity means to you?
Creativity. Okay. That's for me, it's what makes me wake up every morning to do something different and to look at my own creation and see how I can evolve it and I can make it better, different. And somebody had even asked me, my creativity is not just what I create on canvas or what I draw or what I paint, but it's also how I live my life. I would go to different cafes. I would look for something like this weekend.
Did you find something new?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had not seen Brockville,
No
had
way.
not seen Preston, had not seen Perth, and had not lived in Orleans. Do you see it, Orleans?
Orleans, yeah.
Orleans.
Yeah.
Because my GPS was Orléans, and I thought,
It's the
perhaps.
French way of saying it.
Anyway, so this is what I mean. Like my son studied in Ottawa, so we are familiar with the city, and I thought, how can I make this difference? It's always, to me, creativity is just like that every day. How can I switch it around? Because I think as an artist or creators, whilst creativity is a part of what we do every day, it can be quite a solitary process, mostly. I mean, writers tend to sit and just kind of, pound out those 1,500 words every morning. And I am mostly alone in my studio working. I mean, I have my podcasts and listening and all of that stuff. But sometimes that can get monotonous. So for me, creativity is, okay, what am I doing next? How do I make it exciting? How is my next day better than yesterday? That's what it is.
I like that. That solitary process resonates with me a lot, because you do find yourself alone in your office, in your studio, in your space, just doing the work that you need to do, because it's a time-consuming process. But from what I gather, you're saying like it's important to just like switch it, whether it's flip your schedule around if you can, or start your day by doing something different than you did the previous day.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a over the top drastic change, right? It could be start your day with a walk instead of sitting on your phone, for example.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you explored Orleans for the first time.
I loved it. I loved it. It's really lovely. We took a picnic basket and we were I had a lot of books to read, which was, I loved it.
I love that. I love being a tourist in your own city almost. I know Ottawa's technically not your city. You're from Toronto at this time, but my girlfriend and I actually just the other night just rented those electric scooters and just toured around as like downtown by the Parliament. Still, I think it's such an incredible building like that. It's just a history frozen in time on the top of a hill. It's beautiful. But I like hearing everyone else's definition of creativity, because it's all kind of pointing in the same direction, although it's interpreted differently. And that is a little bit of a foreshadow to interpreting things differently from different perspectives.
Exactly.
In what we're going to speak about today. So Mazarine, where does your passion for art originate? Where does it come from? Did you know when you were a little girl that you loved art, or is it something that came later in life?
So my mom's a great artist.
Okay.
She's never pursued it as an artist, but she's good. And she just turned 81, and she's still in exhibits. She's a silk artist.
Love
so
that.
I think I at least got the talent from her.
What is a silk artist?
So she paints on silk.
Oh, it's like instead of a canvas, it's silk?
Yeah, it's silk. And she does beautiful stuff. So she has a lot of wearables. So I think of course, like I said, my talent came from her. And she's always, you know how Asian parents are. You've got to, the doctor, the lawyer. So my daughter's a lawyer, my son's an engineer. So there you go. But luckily with me, when I wanted to pursue art, my mom was fine, but do you want to do something that actually pays the bills? So I got into advertising. So I kind of always knew that I had the passion for it, and I enjoyed stuff. And we were in a really nice school in Bombay. So it was a private school, but we had access to sculpting with straw and hay and clay, and we were in drama.
So you could go in and you could experiment and
with everything,
run creatively,
exactly.
Like however you wanted to.
Yeah.
Love that.
And we had art as an option as one of my final graduating subjects in grade 10. So of course I took that up.
Yeah.
So it was always a part of who I was.
I think that access to being able to use your hands I feel like that's dissipating in a digital world. And I do very much see the book that's on the table. I know you and I had spoken before. You've told me a little bit about it, but I see that as an effort to kind of bring that back.
Yes.
And I can see that sigh of relief inside you, because
let's get back to like the pens and
like let's just take a pencil and break the tip of it while you're
and
trying
doodle.
to write.
We're not doodling anymore.
Yeah.
And that's so important. Yeah.
So before we dive into that, I know everyone who's listening is like dying to know what's the book on the table. Can you tell me a little bit about your origin story? Like where did you start? How did you end up in Toronto, Ontario?
Of course, brought up in Bombay, Mumbai now. I lived so I'm a Parsi, and our community is shrinking now. So that has been on my mind, and my new collection and moving forward is all going to be about the Parsis, and I'm using the butterfly in a very iconic and a symbolic way to kind of address our trajectory and how we kind of moved, like how they said from a pupa to the butterfly.
Yeah.
So just our journey from Iran as immigrants all the way to where we are now, which is terrible. We are kind of dwindling numbers. But luckily I lived in a community which wasn't, normally Parsis live in these secluded, gated communities, but we lived in a very multi-ethnically kind of, there were Gujaratis, there were Muslims, there were Hindus, we were Parsis. So culturally it was pretty rich. I took in a lot, and I think my initial artworks kind of had a lot of that influence of different cultures and how I wanted to portray my art. After I got married, we couldn't afford a house in town, which is where I grew up.
Back home, you couldn't afford it?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I mean, Bombay, it's insane.
Is it expensive?
Oh, goodness, yes.
Is it like metropolitan city, or is it just there's not, like, demand exceeds supply?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And if you're living in town, there is no way that you can live. I mean, the Reliance guy, what's his name now? Who is anyway, it'll come to me. I'm drawing a blank right now. He'd had to go tall, like I don't know, it's a long building, because to live in town and to have a home, it's impossible. So we were living in the suburbs, and then we had this opportunity to go to Dubai, and so we thought, okay, that's where we're headed. And in a year and a half, both my husband and I decided, we got married in Bombay, and then a year later we went to Dubai and we started working there. And then we decided, we had neighbors who were leaving, and I think they just got their papers for Canada. And my husband goes, why don't we try? It's open for immigration, Canada. And then I thought, yeah, let's. And that's how the whole journey started. So we got our papers. We got through in about 6 months, because I think we both being in advertising, we had that, I think we had the points or whatever was required at the time. And that's it. And that's where we are now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's quite the journey to get here. I mean, you've seen many different worlds in a way. Like my parents are both Lebanese, so I do understand the perspective of what it's like to be in Middle East Asia, and I was born in London, England, so I understand what Europe's like. And it's cool when you bring those perspectives and you kind of it apply it in your work. I feel like it brings something unique to the table in a way. And the perspective is something I always chase by traveling. I try to chase perspective, because every time I leave, I get reminded how much Ottawa and Canada is a beautiful country, an amazing place. Because oftentimes you get bored. You're like, Ottawa sucks, or Canada's boring. But like when you leave and come back, you're like, okay, now I understand what it's like on the other side. Yeah. But that's a cool story. Would you ever go back, or are you happy here?
No, I love it here. In fact, when we got the opportunity in 2001, both my kids were 6 and 4 at the time, to go back to Dubai. My husband was asked by the same company to come and lead the company and, manage it. And he thought, why don't we have the kids experience this? And we did. So we were there for about 8 to 10 years, and most of the schooling, kids...
so you did go back to
Dubai. We went back when the kids were 6 and 4. And I have to say, I think those were the best 10 years that we gave the kids, because they have friends all over the world globally now. They are global citizens, I would say, because they saw so much of that culture. And their school friends were from South Africa, from the UK, from India, from Sri Lanka, so it was fascinating. It was just lovely. And so I was happy that we could give them that. And now, I mean, both of them aren't here. They're both out of Canada, unfortunately. But they've seen the world with that lens. And I can see how they're adaptable to change, and they can embrace different perspectives and different points of views. And so that's great.
Awesome. Yeah. It's almost all you could ask for as a parent,
exactly.
Right? Yeah, that's amazing. So I want to know a little bit more about what you do creatively. Is it strictly painting on canvas, or is there more to it?
So it was only canvas in the beginning. Then I got into paperworks, but now I want to be creative in I want to get a little more well-rounded in my creativity. So I even wrote 3 books. Wow. But they're just shelved at the moment.
Okay. Not published? Or not put out into the world?
I will eventually. Yeah. But one was on my own culture. It's just short stories on the Parsis and growing up, because we are kind of a fun community. When they say you're a crazy Parsi, it's like an oxymoron, because there's this idiosyncrasies, and it's just that the community is kind of just a fun, crazy community. So that was that. But my own process has got me to want to develop a lot more beyond the canvas, and that has been what I have been involved in the last 4 years.
That's cool. And that kind of leads us into Mysteries in Color, which is in front of us. And I think from what we've spoken about before, this is that well-rounded. This is taking your art and injecting it into different worlds. And I love when worlds collide. Personally, I play with a lot of old cars that are older than me. And there's nothing more exciting than when you can take something new and blend it with something old and then give it a whole new meaning and a whole new purpose. And it's one of the most incredible feelings, but it's just worlds colliding. Like you're taking things that were never initially intended to be together, and you're doing it, and it has an incredible result. And I think that's what Mysteries in Color has the power to do. So can you please tell us about Mysteries in Color and all there is to it?
So My own process as an artist, I've been an artist now for over 2 decades. I started with faces because, when you're in school and when you're learning art and when you've done your exams and all of that, and I had an advertising background, so it was all very like boxed in a sense. I mean, of course, when you're working on campaigns and all, you can let your creativity flow, but I'm just talking fine arts. But in Dubai, within 2 years of going back in 2001, I'd kind of gotten into the artistic community, and I met these 2 women, both from different, one was South African, one was Greek, and we would paint in one of the ladies' backyards. She had a garage, and we'd create over there, and we thought, why don't we have our first exhibition? We weren't ready, but we thought we're just going to go for it. And it was really quite bizarre because there were just 3 of us, but if you walked into that hall, that exhibition, you'd think there were like 30 artists. We had everything under the sun, from rocks to horses to peacocks to, anyway. And all 3 of us were realistic artists, and we decided, let's move away from realism and do abstract. But when you're not an abstract artist, it's really hard. And for me, I was just staring at this canvas and figuring out, how am I going to do anything without the reference of a face or a portrait or something? And I thought, I'm going to start with color. So I just started splashing color, and it was like playing with color.
Like randomly?
Just randomly
just
through inks.
Yeah.
I put it flat, and how you'd play around in school, where you'd have those, those little water blobs, and you would put the inks and move your paper in, and that's what I did. I just put my canvases flat, I threw things, I put water on it, I let it move around, and then I thought, I just let it dry, and then I started seeing forms come up, and I thought, this is interesting. I actually see a horse here, and I see a peacock there, and that's how the whole collection of some crazy stuff came out, like there were fishes and people, and then I realized that when I put it up, we had at the show, we had a curator come in, and the lady who was running the exhibition felt she wanted each one to have a wall that it would kind of jump. And this curator came in from the Sharjah Museum of Arts, and he looked at my work, and he coined the term, saying, this is almost like a mystery in color. I can see this chatter going on, and this red is calling out to me. It's like sitting in an Indian bazaar, and he was just weaving these stories, and I thought, this is fascinating. And then I started seeing my work in a very different way. And then I realized that people were really connecting to this process, like seeing or looking for things that I didn't put there. And I thought, this is interesting. Even when I did commissions, even though I had a topic, they would say, oh, I want you to do fishes, and this is the palette I'd like you to use. They would see much more than the fishes I put in. And this was all based on these ink blots. And then, of course, we had that spate of coloring books, if you remember, the mandalas and the, elephants, and you just color in the lines. Yeah. And they were kind of supposed to be mindful books. They weren't for me, because it's like you're telling me to color in the lines. I thought, and I thought, well, you're telling me what to do. And if I'm an OCD person, and if I go outside the line, it's not going to work well for me. So during the pandemic, and of course, I had already started working with Isabel, who started really pushing me into really understanding what a brand is, really figuring out what the creative process would be, how to expand on that. And so during the pandemic, we had been chatting about this, and I thought, let me just have some little fun exercises with people. So I'd create these ink plots, and then I'd shoot it off to families, because we were all in isolation. And I said, let's just create and see how this goes. And they had a lot of fun, and everyone was getting to know another side of that person. So even couples would go, I didn't know you could draw so well, or oh, so you like bikes, because he would just see motorcycles, and he was never allowed to get a motorcycle by the wife. So it was really interesting, and I thought, why not offer this to corporates, because teams are working remotely. And that's how it just kind of slid into it, and we created the book. Izzy helped with the entire design and the process of it.
Love that.
And it was out in the world. And now in the fall, we are launching the school program because it's really feeding one of the other. It's the same, the values are the same, the process is the same, the benefits are kind of similar, and it's all about really connecting through a creative medium.
I love that. Do you feel like this is one of those projects that everything in your life led towards?
I think so.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But you would have never known, right? Like
No.
10 years ago, let's say, you had no idea this was... Did you feel like were you still experimenting with the ink blots at the time, or were you strictly doing like commission
No,
artwork?
I was.
You were? Okay.
Yeah.
But that was for your own creative process, right?
Yeah,
It wasn't
yeah.
for anyone else?
No.
That's cool. So is there any instructions? Like how does the book work? Can we have a look at it?
Well, there is a QR code at the back. Again, that was another really fantastic idea that Izzy gave. So
That's
the book...
a touch point, Izzy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I learned a lot from our episode together. She's incredible.
She is incredible because when I talk now, I'm like, what would she have told me to do? What would she have told me to look out for? So the book is really filled with, it gives you a little bit, it's a 68-page book. So it really tells you a little bit about pareidolia and what it is and what it means and what the phenomenon is, and gives you some nature examples. And then it gives you a couple of examples that I've done. So for example, like this ink blot.
No, you see. Can we show the camera?
Sure. It would be like, what do you see? So some have said, I see a rat here, a kind of, and then if they turn it around, the good thing is all these sheets are perforated. So there is no right or wrong way to look at it. You can change your perspective. Some people have seen that and seen it's a blue shoe. If you look at it this way, they think it's a polar bear.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
And then some have turned it this way and said that it's a woman with a bun.
I almost see like a fish here.
And then I created this just as an example to say I could see fishes.
Oh, you drew that.
Yeah.
Oh, so you took
So
this as
just-
the ink blot and this was what you saw.
Yeah. So you just, again, another one.
These are all just random, like threw ink at a paper?
I did it a little bit with intent, like some were a little... I tried to do a few that were not that busy, so that you could kind of look at, like some took a look at this and said, I see a dragon.
Wow.
And some were a little more complicated and a little more busy. Like this, people thought it could be a rabbit, so they created, ears. You can use the blank areas too. And some people have just doodled on it or written stuff on it.
And you can take them out too.
You can tear off a page.
That's amazing.
So people have said that, when we go on walks, when we go on walks, we just take a sheet out of it and we walk out. And they've gone out with their kids and...
I'll show here. That's amazing.
Yeah. And there's a page in there, which is this page. So just to give you an example, so this is one of the pages from the book. And these are the variations that people have created. You just pick up a pencil, somebody saw this, another person saw.
That's
and
amazing.
This is all from the same ink blot. So you see, you don't really
these
have
are
to...
all the same ink? Oh my God.
So
I didn't
that's
realize.
that's the ink blot.
Oh, wow.
You can see it whichever way you want. So somebody saw it this way, for example.
So it starts this, and then this is one person's interpretation.
Yeah.
This is another person. Wow.
This is another person.
I didn't realize those were all the same.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
And this one's turned it this way and seen a stingray and flowers and a sun.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's the beauty of the perspectives that people see, because the other thing is there's no right or wrong in this. It's your perspective. There's no judgment. You see a one-legged frog and you can define it and show me, here's the one-legged frog, there you go. So in terms of the corporate situation, it's a really fun way to kind of brainstorm when you're looking for ideas to kind of launch a new project or onboard new members of your team, even just get to know each other, just kind of a wind down day. So yeah, many possibilities.
It feels like a form of play in a way, which I love so much, because it is a reflection of how incredibly weird and like vast our brains are.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I do see a relation to this podcast was devoted to the exploration of creativity, taking it out of that box, that definition. If you were to look it up in a dictionary, you'd see a definition for creativity. I wanted to explore it beyond the definition. And it's led me to having this conversation with you and learning about your work. And I do see that as taking art out of a box. It's like, I'm not a painter, but now I never really had much of an interest in coloring, but I want to try this. Like, this looks really cool.
Yeah.
It looks like a fun way. And I think this has a lot of potential in the school program, you know, because everything now it's digital and there's less physical touching. Ever since I was a kid, my family would always tell me, like, stop touching everything. But I needed to touch stuff to feel the tactileness of it. I wanted to know how strong is this thing, or I just wanted to touch it because I wanted to like note in my brain, okay, this is what this feels like. Okay, now I can move on with my life. Like not for any particular objective. And I think what's cool about this is there is no objective. It's just to run free. And I see that in your spirit, that you don't always do things with a clear-cut objective. And I think that's what's brought you here, right?
Yeah. That's what, when you even asked me about creativity, I think I've moved the mic a bit.
That's okay.
When you ask me about creativity, this is the other thing too, right? Like, just allow it to expand. We tend to kind of get so boxed in with our own views, in a sense. And even the power of observation, which is another thing that this allows you to do. Because when I've done a workshop and people have asked me, so then what's next? And in a typical workshop, we get to do about 2 ink blots we can work on. Because if you're not an artist, the first thing, if you see a book and coloring pencils, you're like, oh my goodness, I've got to draw and paint. But when they get into this fun way and it's an aha moment, oh, I see now, this is what I can do, and I don't need to be an artist. I can just scribble on it or doodle around. They said that when we are out on walks or we are just playing game night with the family, when I say change your perspective, they tend to kind of move that sheet around and they're a little more focused. Like, what do I see? Like, you're really getting that creative part of your brain really working a little bit, which is, to me, I mean, like I said, I always believe everyone's creative, but we're just not utilizing that part of ourselves enough.
Yeah.
So
I feel like it's very easy for that side to be muted by circumstance. And then you just feel like you're not eligible anymore. Yeah. So what advice would you have for people who, like, deep down they are creative, because everyone is creative, but their life or their circumstance has kind of I guess discouraged creativity? How can they come back to creativity?
I think it's always a personal choice. So I would just say, just break the day if you can. So what I do, for example, is, like I said, even though my creative thing is drawing, I mean, it's an artist and creative, I would still just go and take a pen and paper and just go and scribble thoughts. And even though I have the home to myself, I have all the privacy I need to create. I am not bound with kids and rushing them to their practices or all of that. I still walk down to a cafe to just break the day, to say, okay, this is getting to me now. I don't need to be in the studio. So I think doodling, just start doodling.
Just take a pencil and a paper.
Just take a pencil and start doodling.
Move your hand.
Yeah, because they do say that. I mean, it's proven that doodling even, or creating any sort of art, or like doodling for 30, 40 minutes, just brings down your stress levels. You're calmer, you're more focused. And my husband says that in meetings, if you're doodling, your attention is far more than you're staring, because your mind is then active.
Interesting. I thought it was always seen as like...
That's what I thought. But
you're not paying attention.
No, but if you're doodling, you're more focused, because you're just, so you will retain much more of what's happening at the meeting. Yeah.
I mean, I took notes by hand all throughout university. I refused to type notes because I felt more engaged that way. Yeah. And doodling also sometimes. I didn't really consider it like that doodling keeps your mind engaged. Does. So I probably should be doodling during this podcast. I always find it like should I be writing stuff like?
But that should change. I think our mindset has to change. We tend to have these preconceived notions, which through this process and creating this book and reading a little bit more about the research, I realized that a lot of the things we thought about were not really right. So yeah, you should have doodled.
I should be doodling here.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Mazarine, how can, is this book available?
It is.
Like, can people buy it on the internet or?
We had them on Amazon, but now that we are creating this whole platform with education and the corporates, it's available on its own website.
Amazing.
At theartbrewery.com. There's a lot more about the book. There are some testimonials. It tells you how the process of pareidolia works, so you can order it right off the site.
Love it. I'm going to put that link in the description for anybody who is interested in the book. This is the book here. It's a lovely feeling cover, and the pages are perforated. So if you create something that you want to hang on your wall, you can just neatly rip it out of the book. And perforated edges are very satisfying to rip.
Exactly.
But it's incredible. Like, this is really cool. And then the blank page here, is that just intended to help it flow over? Or?
Well,
I guess it's the back of the previous one technically. So
the back, because, and also like you mentioned, we've designed it in a way that it can be popped into an 8x10 frame.
Oh, okay.
And so I didn't want to use the back. And also some people have kind of used their thoughts. So they've used it as a visual and then journal their thoughts here.
Okay.
So if you're kind of stuck, there's a bank of words at the back to kind of help you jog.
I love that.
And then there is a QR code which takes you to your YouTube channel.
I love that.
Which will show you a bit of the process. So if you're just doing it for yourself, you can get on those little videos and figure out how to work through it. But there's no right or wrong. So literally just that page is all about doodling and your own creativity and what you see in it.
This would make a great gift, honestly.
Yeah.
I know what a few people are getting for Christmas this year. That's awesome. So now is it a challenge to then adapt this to a school program and a corporate workshop, or is it just you pretty much just hand them the book and be like,
No. It took us. We've been working on the school program for a year and a half now. So no, it is a process because the thing is, we are now educating the teachers to see. So there is a process where the teachers kind of play around with this, and then there are lesson plans on how they can incorporate this in class. And it's not just for art students or art teachers. So kind of figuring out how geography or mathematics or literature would work with this process. So it's been a bit of a, but the benefits are the same, how they bring students together, how they start these conversations and have the social emotional learning aspect of the school in it. That's all. That took a bit of time, but the core values, the benefits, the voice, all of that is the same.
I love that. And I'm excited for the individuals who get to experience this in their educational process and in their work, because this would be a fun way to
I think so.
Not be doing the work that you're there to do. Like, this is, I think you mentioned to me when we spoke on the phone previous to the episode that you've had a group of like businessmen in a room like giggling and laughing and drawing like as if they're kids. I think that's amazing.
Oh, it was fun. We had a workshop, corporate workshop in DC, and there were 30 men, and they were all IT and finance, and I saw this sea of very serious looking faces, and I was wondering, were they forced into this workshop? I don't know if this is a good idea, but honestly, I've never seen such creativity and people just jumping off their seats to say, can I share next? And it was a lot of fun. And normally when we do it in person, I have one ink blot, which is like a poster size. So I kind of invite people to come and scribble on it.
That's cool.
And then add to the next one. Or sometimes we play round robin and I'd say, okay, write your name behind the ink blot and pass it around. And then when it comes back to you, did you notice whatever this other person has created? Did you see that? And they say, oh gosh, I never saw what you saw. So it's almost like now we've got, each one has this page where everyone's had their input in it. And then you just see this huge picture, which is so much bigger than what your lens would have been.
I like that. And then it's an experience as well.
Yeah.
You've created, anytime you create something new with someone, I feel like that's where relationships are built.
Yeah.
And I experienced that recently. Like a team and I, like we've all worked together loosely, like two of us here, two of us there, but we never all came together. And we shot a short film on Saturday, like a couple days ago, and we all came together and we created it was a 2-page script, and we did it for fun. It was completely using our own resources and time and effort, and it was one of the most incredible experiences to kind of have that shared where you just create something with there is an objective yet to shoot the script, but it's the shared experience was incredible. And I think this is a really cool way to have a shared experience with not a lot of effort to prep. Like, I guess you just need pencils, and you could use markers even, right?
Absolutely.
Like you use pens, anything.
Anything.
So Mysteries in Color, again, link in the description if you would like to get your own copy of this book. It's really cool. Check it out. And excellent work from you and from Izzy for building this. Izzy was on episode 16. That is actually how Mazarine and I met. Through Izzy. Izzy helped Mazarine develop and design her brand. And it's cool how a brand strategist can help an artist to hone in on what's possible. It's really cool. Mazarine, if you could go back to your past self and leave a message, what would you say?
I wouldn't wait this long to create what my dreams were, because the self-doubt, that's the terrible thing.
Yeah.
You always feel, but somebody else could do this. Like, I mean, this is such a simple process in a sense. I'm like, oh, but somebody else can. So I would just say, I wouldn't wait. If I had an idea, if I had a dream, like those 3 books which I said I've written, like, why am I not just putting them out? So I would say not wait. I would say if you have a dream, you may fail, but that's where we learn. You don't learn from your successes. It's from the failures and I've failed on many projects, but I'm like, okay, I would not wait this long to put things out that I feel so connected with.
I like that. And then if you could speak to your future self, what would you say? Or what would you ask?
I just don't want to retire.
I like that.
Just keep expanding on whatever I've created.
Yeah, keep What's Next, Mysteries in Color version 28.
Yeah, so we were very ambitious, and we said volume 1. Because we are going to think of, but now I'm thinking beyond the book. So we're kind of thinking how else we can make it happen.
Yeah, like almost designing an experience at this point, right?
Yeah.
I like that. Do you have any advice for aspiring artists, people who, they so deeply want to make art their entire life, but maybe they're bogged down by circumstance, they don't know if it's financially feasible? Like, what would be your advice to someone who's aspiring to
I would say just do it. Because I do agree that it's not always financially viable. But there's so much more out there than at the time I started. I mean, there are so many things that you can collaborate with. You can create for textiles. You don't have to create just wall art. So I would just say go for it, because there shouldn't be regrets that, oh, I didn't even pursue this. And creativity is quite subjective. So it is a hit and miss. I mean, I remember there was a time when I had a show, my last show in Dubai before I left Dubai, and the agent who was representing me said, I'm going to have the show for you. Anyway, there was a couple standing in front of this art piece, and they said, and my husband was there, and they didn't know he was my husband, and they said, oh, they just put any crap up on the walls now. And he goes, that's my wife's work. And he said, and he said, that's okay, everyone doesn't have to like art, I know. But then soon after I was here, and that same piece won first prize in a curated art show from 600 entries. And I had a prize award from the mayor of Aurora, and from all these. So this is what I mean. You hear one comment or oh, don't do it, it's really tough. And you kind of just withdraw and go, creativity isn't easy, whether you're a writer, a sculptor, or whatever. I would just say, just do it, because it's not a black and white thing, and you will never be able to please everyone with everything you create. I mean, a lot of people would say, oh, this is crap. I mean, this is just childish, but I don't believe that. Yeah. So if I had said, oh, that person doesn't like this would have never come out.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you listen, it is one of those things that's easier said than done. Yeah. Because sometimes it's like, who's giving the criticism? It's oftentimes someone close to you. It could be someone close to you that you love, like our family or whatever, and they're giving the criticism. So at that point, you're like, what? It's like, oh crap, maybe they're right, but you do have to push past that.
Yeah, but that's anyway. Exactly this, right? This is about perspectives. Everyone has a different perspectives, and that's okay if they don't like it. But I think if you strongly feel you want to be a creative, I would say just do it.
Yeah.
And there are, like I said, there are so many ways you could create to make the money. So my mom right now, like I said, she's creating on Procreate, and she's pattern design. She wants to get into that because now she wants to see if she can create patterns for fabrics from silk. So she's kind of, and she's 81.
She's still
pursuing
trying new stuff.
Oh yeah.
I love that. That's almost like that's probably what gives life at that point, right? It's that constant exploration and curiosity. It's energizing in a way. Mazarine, what do you do for fun? Like, aside from work and, writing this book and all of the past endeavors, what do you do for fun when you disconnect and you turn it all off?
I look for, honestly, it's really bizarre, but I look for cute cafes to sit at and either read. And from Toronto, I have traveled sometimes 45 minutes or an hour. If that seems like a really lovely place to just sit, I do that. For me, that's the thing. Like, even now, when we head back to Toronto, I'm like, in Kingston, is there something? And my daughter studied at Queen's, so I'm familiar with that city too. But I'm like, where can I go that I've not been? So for me, that's the fun. Where can I just hop into the car, and even if it's for one cup of coffee, that's my downtown.
I like that. You're still exploring though.
Yeah.
That is almost creative downtime.
Yeah.
So are you still finding new coffee shops?
I am.
You haven't ran out yet?
No. In fact, there are some that I haven't even, when I look at, I had them all bookmarked.
Okay.
Yeah, there are many that I haven't.
I have a feeling you're going to end up opening a coffee shop one day.
That was a dream.
Yeah. That
was the dream. But now I think I'm just going to connect and collaborate with some cafes to have these fun workshops at.
Yeah.
I don't think so. My husband was he was in food and beverage. Like, he was in HAPT. He was his hotel management career. And I always said, can we open a cafe together? And he said, it's actually fun when you're sitting as a patron and not running it. So you will not find this romantic and lovely and cute and fun when you're the one running the cafe. So I think I'm just going to enjoy it. I don't think I'll. No.
Yeah. It's better. Grass is greener.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Seems like that. Yeah.
Yeah. The food industry is tricky. I worked in a kitchen for 7 years of my life. I started as a dishwasher and then became cook and eventually managed the entire kitchen. But I needed to get out of there because it is tough. It's respect to the people that do it day after day, but it's quite the environment. It's hot, it's loud, it's smelly, all that stuff.
But of course, it's a passion, right?
Exactly.
And I mean, people tell me that, isn't it like, and it's not it's a job, but it's not like, I'm going to sell 3 paintings every month. Sometimes I do, but it's not. And sometimes you sell like 10 paintings in like 10 days. And sometimes for 6 months you haven't sold anything. But I have that passion. So I think similar with cafes. I think if you have the passion, it's not work. So
exactly. I just thought, imagine you had a cafe called Mysteries in Color.
Oh, that would be lovely. But
and if people just come in and draw on the walls and
that would be awesome. But I might have to just connect with a cafe. Are you doing well? Can we just collaborate? Maybe that's a dream. Yeah,
I'd love to attend if you have an event like that. That'd be cool. Mazarine, so I know you like to explore in your downtime. How do you stay motivated, day after day, through the challenges, through maybe the discouragement or the not selling a painting for 6 months? Like, what keeps you going?
I think, like I said, I'm always trying to draw on what's next. What can I do that's different? So currently, as I'm working on that, I'm trying to see how can I create a small book which is more, which you can read and have little prompt exercises with a part of an ink blot. So there's always something brewing, which is why my business is called The Art Brewery, because I'm just constantly like, what's next? So I stay motivated because I think I'm not yet bored of being an artist, luckily. And of course the new collection, because now that I'm moving away from color into black and white, that's a different challenge for me. How am I not going to reach out for these bright colors and just stay within that black and white palette? So and I think luckily for creatives now there's Instagram and Pinterest. So it's always lovely to see what's out there. Now I'm thinking, how can I become 3-dimensional? What can I create that's 3D? which is the same concept, which still identifies who I am. I might have to have another chat with Izzy on this, but yeah.
That's cool. The Instagram for inspiration is incredible, but also dangerous in a way. Navigating that space can turn from fun into like consuming, or just almost like I hate like maybe stealing your time. It is a bit of a blurry pastime.
Not only stealing your time, but I think it's also, I find that sometimes if I see some artists sold, you have that little, oh my goodness, what am I doing wrong?
Like they're just selling their, showing that.
And then I'm like, it could be the pricing. So you do get into that self-doubt, that little part, which I'm telling people to stay away from. But I've kind of mastered the art of snapping out of it. I'm like, it could be a million reasons why she's selling it. Maybe she's whatever. And then I just move on. It's got nothing to do with me. But I don't really look at art where I need creativity. I would look at things that are happening.
Okay.
It would be something I've probably read, or it could be the opening of a cafe.
Okay.
Or it could be a designer for interiors, or it could be a fashion designer. Just something, or how somebody has mentioned something that would trigger a storytelling thing in my head and say, oh, that would be a nice concept to explore. So that's how I just keep going.
I like that. Would you, if you could kind of narrow it down to one or several small, like valuable lessons that you've learned throughout your experiences and your hardships and your successes, what would be some kind of core valuable lessons that you've learned?
One is, I made the mistake in between in my career to try and create things that were selling, but that wasn't me. Like I would say,
the motivation was to sell and make like,
like I would say, oh, people are looking for abstract, so why don't, but I'm not a complete pure abstract person. I cannot do things where I can't make sense of it. But I saw a lot of people selling it, and I'm like, maybe that's what I should do, but that's not me. That's not who I was. So I would never go down that path again. Envy, which was really big, and I would be like, I'm doing something wrong. She's obviously, and I would try and emulate. What are they doing that I should be doing? I'm like, but I'm not comfortable doing that. I'm not comfortable putting this out all the time. Like Instagram, I do have an account, but I'm up and down on it. For me, I guess because of when I started my journey, for me, a personal connection and keeping in touch and picking up a phone and talking or sending an email is far more important to me than constantly putting out a story or a post on Instagram. I know that's important, but that's not me, not yet.
Okay.
So, and I don't like putting anything personal where it's what my kids are doing or what I've eaten or where I'm holidaying, or that's, I mean, I would show something interesting of where I am if it's a beautiful scene or something that's pertinent or important to my brand. But I wouldn't say, like I wouldn't wish my kids happy birthday with a big story. It would be a happy birthday. So sometimes I see maybe people connect with stories, but what's my story? So I'm still struggling with that. I don't know how much I need to put out. But so those are the things that I don't want the envy. I don't want to follow people. I don't want to create things that are not me. And sometimes it's a harder road because you really need to hustle to let people know this is important. Take a look at this. You just have to put in the work, I guess. There's no shortcuts.
No. Thank you for sharing that insight. It's interesting. It's interesting and refreshing to know that I can relate to what you just said and the things that, are tough and what you want to share and what you don't want to share. But I want to emphasize that, like sending an email and calling someone and texting someone is so much more fun in a way than just like, like loosely interacting through a platform. But there's so many assumptions. And again, this is another enormous inspiration of this podcast, was breaking down that, preconceived idea of who someone was based on their digital presence. Because throughout the pandemic, like everyone, all we had, we clung on our digital presence because that was what we had and that was our way of communicating. And in a way, some people built some incredible digital presences and others struggled, and, you know, however they ended up going about it, whether they did nothing at all, but people had an idea of like this person, they defined them based on what they put on the internet. And I was like, okay, there's no context here. And every single guest that we've had on the show, I've learned so much about them, and like so much more than I could have ever learned from the internet. And I'm happy to be able to kind of broadcast that and share that with the world. And you are one of those people as well who I could have seen your book and I could have seen your website and been like, oh, she's an artist. Cool. But now to get to know you and your unique background and perspectives is it's an honor to do it. And thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's cool. It's refreshing to speak with people from different industries and different, you know, passions, and seeing how we're all still very similar. And it's cool. I think I'm going to go find some random coffee shops now. I've been to a few, but there's definitely more that I could go to.
There are some lovely ones
here too. Doodle in a coffee
Yeah,
shop or something. I love that. Before we end, I have a couple fun questions to ask you. Rapid fire questions.
Gosh, okay.
just for fun. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Nice. You're going to battle with one tool in your art studio. What is it?
An X-Acto knife, I guess.
Nice, good choice. Maybe with some extra blades just in case. If you could only express one form of art for the next 5 years, what would it be?
I guess just canvas art.
Canvas, paintbrush canvas.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can do that in my sleep because it's just so familiar. The smells or the feel.
That's cool.
And I use my hands a lot more than the brush, so I think that would be it.
I like that you said the smells too, because that's such an important part of. It's a pretty major one of our senses, and it's one that's overlooked. And the smell is cool. I think Izzy talked about how they incorporated taste into one of their zines that they do, where they sent like a pack of gum.
It was amazing.
Really
it's
cool.
Such a creative zine. Yeah.
I think smell is an overlooked sense.
Yeah. And because I can smell what an ink smells like, to a oil paint, to an acrylic paint, to if I'm using turpentine that's odorless or solvent. So for me, I think it just, all my senses are activated. So that would be it.
Did you ever taste the paint for fun?
You know, that's happened sometimes.
By accident.
By mistake, because if my coffee is there and I've had a sip, or and like I said, I don't wear gloves often, which is actually dangerous. I should, but I like to feel my colors, and especially because I work flat. I know what things taste like for sure.
It's worth getting your head stained for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then lastly, if you could travel back in time and meet an artist or change something in the past and rewrite history, not necessarily for yourself, what would you do? Or who would you go back and meet?
Oh my goodness, who would I? So I went to France and went to Monet's gardens. Cool. And I have used that lily pond because I teach at a couple of art studios back in Dubai, and even over here in Toronto when I came. That was just, I think the looseness of the brush strokes, that feel, I wouldn't change anything. But being there and seeing the actual premise and where those lily ponds were, I'm like, oh my God, I was going through the books and giving them pages and saying, we're going to recreate Monet's lily pond. So I think it's just somebody I would have loved to meet because I was already there. But I don't think I would really change anything, because I think when I've read history, or my education in art was more applied arts, so it was more geared towards an advertising background, not fine arts. So we didn't really read the history of art or architecture or the painters or that era, nothing of that. It was more advertising. But whatever I've read has been an inspiration, so I doubt that I would really change anything. I've questioned it, which is fun, to say what would I have done, but no, I don't think so.
Just go back and observe. Just soak it all up.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I'd like to thank you again for traveling all this way.
Not at all. It was a pleasure.
All the way to Ottawa. I know it's a long drive. I've done it a few times. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story, your insights, and your lovely book here, Mysteries in Color, an art workbook for practicing mindfulness through creativity. That is just a beautiful description of what this book is. And it is available for you if you'd like to get your hands on this book. There will be a link in the description box below. Mazarine, can we find you on Instagram?
Under Mazarine Memon.
Okay.
So my name, the entire name, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram.
Awesome.
I'm on Pinterest, but not so much.
That's okay. Yeah. And then your website is theartbrewery.com?
My website is theartbrewery.com, as well as my own personal website with my art. Is The Art Brewery is all about the book and the workshops. Okay. And if people want to book an exploration call and just have fun with me for 30 minutes, they can do that.
Love that.
They'll get an ink blot from me, and then they just experience what it feels like. And otherwise, my name, Mazarine Memon, and that's my entire artworks will be on that.
Love it. So people can call you and book a workshop? Love that. So please, if you have a establishment, organization, and you'd like to do something fun, whether it's an educational or professional one, consider this as a really cool team building activity that really doesn't require a lot of effort or space to do it. You just need a room and some pencils and this lovely book and the guidance of you.
They get the pencils.
Oh, you bring pencils too?
Yeah, no. When they book a workshop, they get a whole package. So they get the entire book.
They get to keep the pencils
and the set of color pencils and a sharpener, and then they're good to go.
Sharpener. I love that. Yeah. There you go. That's
no erasers, because we just want them to just go for it.
Yeah, exactly. Mistakes are beauty, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or no, mistakes are progress. That's something someone else said. So with that, thank you very much for listening to episode 19 of the Creatives Podcast, brought to you by Midnight Hour Studios and Pano Media. The Creatives Podcast is available on all major streaming platforms. If you're watching this on YouTube, just know that all of the past episodes and this episode are available to stream, whether you're in the car, in the office, or just out for a walk. You can stream them wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to submit questions, if you'd like to reach out, we do have a Discord community where people can interact. We have an email that you can reach us, and we have an Instagram page if you'd like to just check out clips from past episodes. If you'd like to be on the show, please shoot us an email. It's TheCreatives@gmail.com, and it's TheCreatives on Instagram, because someone has the one with one to the.
Oh, okay.
And I asked them about it, and they said they'd sell it to me for $1,000. And I say, I'll come back to you. Maybe one day their price will go down. If you're watching this original The Creatives user handle, give us a discount, please. But again, thank you for watching. 19 episodes in. I can't believe we've, had this 19 conversations with different creatives. It's incredible. And we're close to 20, which is the furthest I've ever gone as a podcast host and a podcast creator. So it's really cool, and it doesn't come without challenges for sure. So I do appreciate your patience. These episodes come out as frequently as it is feasible for myself, as I do operate Pano Media with my team. So that is consuming a lot of time. But thank you for watching. I hope these do bring you value. Mazarine, thank you for joining us today. Hope you have a safe drive back to Toronto.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you on the next episode.